Hey, welcome to The Explainer. When we think about getting a mortgage, we usually picture the big day, signing the papers, getting the keys. But what actually happens for the next 30 years? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a super important but kind of hidden part of the financial world, the business of managing reverse mortgages long after the ink on the contract is dry.
So just think about that for a second. Once a loan is officially created, who takes over? Who's the one sending out the statements, handling the cash flow, and making sure all the complicated rules are followed for, decades? Well, that's the world of loan servicing. And when you look at the little niche of reverse mortgages, it's a really fascinating and challenging business. So to really get our heads around it, here's our roadmap. We're going to start by meeting the big kahuna in this space. Then we'll unpack this huge economic problem the whole industry is facing. We'll look at the tricky balance between technology and real human support, check out the big picture issues holding back growth, and finally ask what all this means for the future of retirement in America.
All right, let's dive into our first section, a giant in a niche. Before we can get into the challenges, we got to know who we're even talking about. Who are the key players on this field? So, what even is reverse mortgage servicing? Put simply, it's pretty much everything that happens after the loan is made. It's all about managing that relationship for the long haul, making sure every I is dotted and T is crossed on some really complex regulations, and just handling all the financial plumbing that keeps the loan going. It's a super specialized long-term gig.
Now, what's really wild is how concentrated this little industry is. There's one company called Celink that's estimated to handle the servicing for about 75% of all reverse mortgages out there. That is a massive slice of the pie, which makes them a seriously crucial piece of this whole puzzle.
And boy, has the business changed. Look at this. 20 years ago, the operation was tiny, just 3 people juggling about 5,000 loans. Fast forward to today, it's a huge operation with hundreds of highly skilled pros, a super sophisticated tech platform, and a real need for very hands-on support for borrowers. The complexity has just gone through the roof.
And that explosion in complexity leads us right into the industry's single biggest headache, which brings us to Section 2, the industry scale problem. This is the real heart of the issue we're exploring today, a problem that puts pressure not just on the companies, but maybe even on the people they serve.
Probably the easiest way to get this is with a little analogy. Okay, imagine you've built this giant cutting-edge factory. You've got the best machines, you hired the smartest people. It's all designed to be crazy efficient when it's pumping out 1,000 orders a day. But what if you only get 100 orders? Well, your costs, the building, the staff, they don't change. You're paying for all this capacity you're not even using. That right there is the scale problem in reverse mortgage servicing. And these are those big fixed costs, the factory expenses. You absolutely need a big team of really skilled people. You have to build and maintain these incredibly complex, expensive tech systems. And then on top of all that, you have more and more demands for cybersecurity, big legal teams, and customer web portals. All of this stuff costs a ton of money, whether you're handling 10,000 loans or 100,000.
And here's the kicker. The servicers can't just go out and drum up more business to solve their scale problem. As Celink's Ryan LaRose says here, they are totally dependent on how many new loans their lender clients are creating. So their growth is pretty much out of their control, which makes that whole factory analogy sting even more.
Which leads us to our next big topic, high tech versus high touch. Because even with all this pressure to cut costs, servicers can't just go and automate everything. They're working with a very specific group of customers who have very specific needs.
So what they have to do is this kind of hybrid strategy. On one hand, they're pushing technology as hard as they can, using AI for paperwork, building web portals for borrowers. But on the other hand, they have to keep this very human, high-touch side of the business strong, with live call centers and patient, hands-on help for seniors who might not be so comfortable with all the digital stuff. It's a constant balancing act.
But here's a really interesting little twist. The industry has actually been surprised by how well seniors have taken to new technologies, like borrower portals. It's just a great reminder to not make assumptions, right? It shows that if you design tech well, pretty much any demographic will embrace it.
Okay, so if the servicers are already innovating and walking this tightrope, what's the real long-term solution? That brings us to Section 4, barriers to broader growth. This is where we have to look outside the servicing companies themselves to find the answer.
See, the ultimate answer isn't just about making the factory a tiny bit more efficient. It's about getting more orders through the door.
The only way to really solve the scale problem is to grow the whole reverse mortgage market, to get to a point where those high fixed costs are spread out over way more loans. That's when the real efficiencies can finally kick in.
So how in the world do you do that? Well, the industry is pointing to a few key changes needed for the main government-backed program, which is known as the Home Equity Conversion Mortgage, or HECM. First, they say you got to make it cheaper for people to get these loans in the first place. Second, make the investments that back these loans more stable and attractive to investors. And third, you have to fix some really complicated rules about when lenders have to buy loans back. The argument is, these changes would make the whole system healthier and naturally boost the number of loans.
And that brings us to our final section, the path to sustainability. I mean, why should we really care about the internal problems of this one niche financial industry? What's the big deal?
Well, this quote from Ryan LaRose really puts it all in perspective. The average American has surprisingly little saved for retirement. But at the very same time, American seniors are sitting on a truly staggering amount of wealth that's just locked up in their homes. That disconnect, it points to a massive opportunity.
I mean, just look at that number, $14 trillion. That's the resource that a stable, efficient reverse mortgage industry could help seniors unlock to have a more secure retirement. So solving this industry scale problem isn't just some business issue. It's directly tied to unlocking this enormous financial potential for millions and millions of people.
So that's the big question we're left with. The challenges are pretty clear. You've got high costs, low volume, and a need for some major structural changes. But the potential is just as clear. Trillions of dollars in home equity that could literally change the face of retirement in America. The path forward really depends on whether this hidden engine of the mortgage world can finally get the scale it needs to run the way it was designed to.